And welcome back, Mindsetters. I hope you had a nice little break there. You went and did whatever you had to do. Like I always say, make sure you got some juice, some water, whatever you need so you don't need to get up again. Now, make sure you guys pay attention because I'm going to hand back to Haley who's going to continue the rest of the session. Haley, take it away.
Thanks, Ty. I'm so glad Ty says pay attention because what happened in the break is that I got informed that somebody was paying attention and actually picked up that I had made a mistake. So I'm really glad that you guys are listening. And I actually missed the caller's name. I don't know if maybe you can find out,
I'll
but
find him.
I missed the caller's name and I apologize to everybody and I thank you for actually paying attention. So the problem was the total amount of money that he spent on the day of the 12th of March. So I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to redo this calculation. So let's just delete that because that answer was incorrect. So on the 12th of March, let's get our calculator out. On the 12th of March, he had a movie for 17 Rand 50. And he bought himself a cold drink for 4.75 and popcorn for 6 Rand. So in actual fact, he paid 28.25 on that day. So let's go back and fill that in. Okay, it was 28 Rand and 25 cents. So that is the amount that he spent at the movies. And then the next fault, because I had this problem that I carried this mistake forward, I've actually carried on making a mistake. So I'm going to just run through the questions again. It was this question which was actually really perturbing me, that it was a negative number. And I thought, how then is he spending more than he has? So our mistake was our expenses was incorrect. So let's just delete from there and see what our totals were. And what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to take the expenses, and I think I tried like a little shortcut, but I'd made a mistake with the movies. I'm actually going to go back to my table, and let's add up all our expenses to that point. So his expenses of 9 Rand was the first one. So we're going to clear that, and I'm going to say, well, it's 9 Rand plus our 32.50 plus 17.50. Ty, you're checking me.
Yes, I'm
Plus
watching
4
very
and
keenly.
75. And as you enter the numbers on your calculator, just make sure that you're entering them correctly.
And don't
And
double.
Don't double them and make sure you've got all of them plus the 6 Rand. And I get a total of 69 Rand 75. Sounds a whole lot better. So his expenses, let's find our blue penny expenses, were 69 Rand 75. Oops, that's not a 7. 75. So now how much money did he have? We're going to take our income minus our expenses, and he actually had a positive of 25 cents. So again, I apologize for this, but these things happen. I call them gremlins in the work. Right.
Those are
Should the
always
rest be
lessons.
correct? Absolutely, his lessons. That should be correct because that's the amount of money that he borrowed from his parents. And the last question, the amount of money and how the rest should be correct. So let's move on. We did this question. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to question 3. And remember, I'll come back to question 1 if we've got time. So question 3 says, often it is cheaper to buy ingredients in bulk if one is going to do a lot of baking. Below is a table showing the quantities of different ingredients that have been bought in order to bake donuts. Right, so always when you have a table, remember I tell you to analyze the table and see what we have on the table. So my first column, I've got ingredients, and clearly these are all the ingredients needed for donuts. I've got flour, salt, sugar, yeast, etc., margarine, all of the quantities that they were bought in. It means 25 kilograms of flour was bought, 500 grams of salt, 20 kilograms of sugar. The price that we paid, the quantity needed per batch. So, okay, so for our flour, we had 25 kilograms bought. We paid 107 Rand 48. We only need 2 cups. Quantity in grams needed per batch and the cost per batch. So we're going to probably have to do some of those calculations. So then we get some extra information. 1 cup is equal to 250 mils. And 1 packet of yeast is 10 grams. Now, when we look at different ingredients, their gram measurement per cup is different. So if we look at jam, for example, 5 moles is a teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon of jam weighs 6 grams, compared to flour, where 5 moles, that's 1 teaspoon, weighs 3 grams. 25 moles is usually, I think it's a tablespoon, and 100 moles. So we will go through this. We're going to use this to convert. Right, using the table, determine how much flour was bought. So go back to our table.
Oh yeah, by the way, Haley, we just found out who it was. It was Arthur.
Arthur. Thank you, Arthur. So I'm really glad that you're paying attention. I hope I don't make any more mistakes, but you better be paying extra hard attention, just in case. You never know. So thanks, Arthur. Dad, how much flour was bought? We bought 25 kilograms. So on that, we can just add 25 kilograms, and we can move on to the next question. Okay, we've still got our table. How many packets of yeast were bought? So let's go back to our table. Yeast, we bought 1 box of 100 packets. So how many packets were bought? There were 100 packets. Next question asks us, how many eggs were bought? Do not give the answer in dozens, but rather the actual number of eggs. So let's go see our table. How many eggs were there? Find the eggs. We had 8 dozen. So we're going to start off by saying, I'm going to change the color of this pen. We're going to start off by saying it's 8 dozen. But they want our answer in actual eggs. So how many in a dozen? We're going to say 8, and there are 12 eggs in a dozen. I don't know if we need the calculator to do this, but you guys have got calculators. So you know what? By all means, check. 8 times 12 is 96. So we had 96 eggs. And also don't forget your units. So we actually have the number of eggs. Right. And next question is, how many liters of oil were bought? So going back to my table, oil, we had 24 times 750 moles. So we're now going to have to calculate how many moles, and then convert it to liters. So we had 24 bottles of 750 moles. Let's use our calculator now. Move our calculator back to where we prefer it. Okay, 24 times 750, and we get an answer of 18,000. So that is, with the pen, 18,000 moles. But remember, my question asked me how many liters. And the other thing, I don't talk in 18,000s. So I'm going to convert that to liters. And we need to know how many moles in a liter. There are 1,000 moles in a liter. So I'm going to divide by 1,000. And in actual fact, I can just cancel my zeros. And I see that I end up with 18 liters of oil. Right. And the next question says, right, complete the table by filling in the number of grams needed for each ingredient per batch. So let's go back to our table, and they want us to fill in this column over here. So, okay, let's delete those lines. Right, and let's work out what we need. So, I'm going to get, I think, my green pen. Flour, we need 2 cups. But I need to know how many grams is 2 cups. So I need to go to this table, and I need to work out flour, and I know that it's 60 grams for 100 moles. 1 cup is 250 mils. So this is quite a calculation. So let's see what we've got. We know what 100 mils is. 100 mils is 60 grams. Right. We need 2 cups. So 250 mils is 1 cup. We're going to times that by 2. So we need 500 mils. So we're going to say 500 mils here is what we need. And this is a wonderful ratio question. And what do we basically do? We're going to say, well, okay, for me to get from 100 to 500, I can times by 5. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to times by 5. So on my calculator, get my calculator out, I'm going to say 60 grams times by 5, and I get 300 grams. I think we were using green. 300 grams. Right, and then salt, I need 15 mils. So let's go find 15 mils. Salt, it's 5.5 grams. For 5 mils, I need 15, so I'm going to times that by 3. I'm actually going to do that a second one. Let's get a little bit more space. Right, so for salt, we had 5 mils was 5. What was 5 mils? 5.5 grams. 5.5 grams, and I need 15 mils per batch. So here I'm going to times by 3. And I'm going to have to do this for every ingredient. So let's say I've got 5.5 times by 3. It gives us 16.5 grams. Let's go back and write that onto our table. 16.5 grams. And we're going to do that for every single one of the ingredients. I don't think that I need to spend all the time going through every ingredient. And maybe if we've got some time at the end of the lesson, although I would like to get to that question 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with those 2. I'm going to go on to the next question, which is going to ask me for the cost. So let's see. The cost of each ingredient per batch. So let's go back to our table and let's work on flour. So flour, we bought 25 kilograms for 107 Rand 48. And we only need 300 grams. So we need to work out the cost of that flour. So let's write that out as a ratio. I'm actually going to move this down if I can. Right. So I know that I've got flour. I have 25 kilograms was equal to, I can't remember the cost, and we need 300 grams. Let's go back to my table and check that cost. 107 Rand 48. And I want to know how much is 300 grams going to cost. Now, the one problem I have is I cannot work in grams and kilograms. So I need to convert the one to the other. So I'm going to convert this into kilograms, my 300, by dividing by 1,000. So what do I have there? I have 0.3 kilograms. That was per batch. Now I need to check, let's change our color. Now I need to check, what do I do to 25 to get 0.3? I need to do the same thing here. And remember, I've always said to you, multiply by the reverse. Multiply by 0.3 over 25. So I'm going to multiply by 0.3 over 25. So multiply by the second number over the first number. And now I can do that on my calculator. And remember on your calculators, okay, so we've got 107 Rand 48. I'm going to times by 0.3. You can always press your equals, just be careful of bad maths, but in fact when we're multiplying and dividing, we can do both at the same time. And we're going to divide by 25, and we get an answer of 1,28976. Now, if we want to know the price per batch, I'm going to have to round it off. I'm going to make it R1.29. So it's R1.29 for the flour. So that was actually R1.29. And I can go back and fill that into my table. I could do the same thing for the salt. Do you think we've got time to do the salt quickly?
I think we should just take a quick ad break.
I think maybe we should take an ad break because I think they got the idea of what we're doing. So, guys, I'm going to send you off for a break. I'm sending you to Ty, and I'll see you after the break.
All right. And on that note, Mindsetters, again, I stress, do not disappear. Make sure you come back, and we'll see you after this.